doesn't really have much of a plan attacking the basket. He's a little out of control. I think Scoot, I went through Scoot's possessions and assists, and I think Scoot has like assisted DeAndre Ayton on the roll one time. The numbers for Scoot haven't been good. He's had a couple of games where he just didn't even really break into the box score until the second half. And Portland was semi-competitive at home against Orlando, but still couldn't score and ended up losing that by about 10. It got like slightly closer in garbage time at the end, but it wasn't really close enough that Orlando was sweating. And of course they got blown out at Philly, that got blown out at the Clippers. And what struck me, again, one of these games they had Simon, one of them they don't, but Malcolm Brogdon is playing plenty too now, is Scoot a lot of just like spot up possessions, just not really that often in pick and roll, at least as far as him finishing the possession. And that's a little surprising to me. I thought that would be one of their big staples, but Brogdon and Anthony Simons are more established than Scoot and probably better than him at this point in time. But I did think that he would just be kind of seizing the bull by the horns a little bit more than he has been. Now, I would love to see, because I haven't watched, other than maybe about 2/3 of that Clippers game, I didn't watch either of their, and I guess I watched 2/3 of the Clippers game. I watched the second half of the Magic game. But yeah, it just wasn't that often that he was able to create something out of pick and roll. And I would love to see the stats of like how many times they actually tried pick and roll and it just didn't work and they had to go to something else or it didn't get logged by Synergy.
Yeah, because it wasn't just to let people know, because what concludes the play is really what gets logged on Synergy.
Yeah. But just watching the film, his handle hasn't been as tight as I would have hoped. I think there have been some good moments where he's just made the right read in pick and roll, getting it to a shooter or attacking himself. But like a lot of young guards, doesn't really have much of a plan attacking the basket. He's a little out of control, trying to do it all with athleticism, and NBA big men are too good for that. I mean, a lot of times being more in control, going slower is actually going to help your finishing. If you look at some guys like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Jalen Brunson, like those guys aren't like blowing past you with quickness. It's more Luka Doncic is another guy, or even Nikola Jokic is another one, where those guys are all great finishers, but it's not because they're just like blowing past their man and they're so athletic. It's almost the fact that you're able to slow down, be in control, protect the ball, and to take the steam out of the defense, have them guessing at the rim. That works better. Scoot hasn't really understood how to do that yet. So it's been a lot of kind of headlong rushes into a right-handed drive where he's gotten blocked or been rushing his finish at the end. He does have really long strides, though, and I think that's something that we're going to see more of in time. And I guess the other thing I would say that probably to me would be the most concerning is just the lack of wow plays.
Sure.
He had one transition dunk that looked pretty good, and he's just been bricking open 3-pointers a fair amount. Whatever. I'm not making any conclusions on that after 3 games. But I would like to have seen like a couple of just like really nasty highlights so far. And if you consider someone like Ja Morant or even LaMelo early in his career, though LaMelo had a pretty rough debut as well. But there are guys where you're like, okay, we at least see it here, even if it's pretty inconsistent. And so I'm not shoveling dirt on Scoot Henderson by any means, but it has been a worse debut than I would have hoped for him, to be sure.